Hello everyone and welcome to this month's product update for Just Planet. My name, as always, is Jan Vierguts. I am the development lead for Just Planet. As a quick note before we start, this is a GoToWebinar. All attendees are automatically muted. This is to enhance audio quality and not have any background noises that we don't want to. And if you do have a question, which we are eager to answer, please just ask them via the chat box in the GoToWebinar application. Furthermore, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available to you at a later date. Again, my name is Jan Vierguts. I am the development lead of Just Planet and have worked and built this product with my team for the last a lot of years. And in difference to the last two updates I made, we are going to have an immediate look into Just Planet because this time there is a lot of exciting stuff happening that is better seen than described. But before we go to the part that really excites us as the developers, which will be the API, which will be the main focus of this webinar, we will take a quick look at the other general enhancements that we did with this release. The first one we're going to take a look at is an enhancement to the templates. So as we take a look in the Manage Templates dialog and just select the template details, as you can immediately see if you have worked with templates before, this dialog changed a bit. Before it was just this table down below where you can set up the routing for your template. And now what we've added is general job information can be also added to templates. So of course you can change the name of the template, but that you could have done beforehand in the other dialog. Now you can also determine the strategy that is being used for jobs made from this template. So you can, on the template, immediately say, okay, I know for this template, all my jobs based on this need to be scheduled either ASAP or JIT. Plus you can also add the job node as well as the custom fields if you have set them up. And that will be, and I will show this to you, automatically updated, update any job that is connected to this template. Just like any routing information changes would have been pushed through. Now we need to wait a quick second. Okay, now we need to find the right one. We updated share painted. And now if I hover over this, we see immediately in the tooltip there at the bottom, this is a demonstration. This is now applied to all of these jobs because all of these jobs are part of this template. The second thing we updated is a decoupling of quantities. Beforehand, we had the possibility to give task quantities that were different from the job quantities. But what this would do is block out the job quantity at all. Changes weren't even possible anymore, and there was no reflection of changing the job quantity in the tasks. What we've added now is the capability to set the task quantity or the component quantity for that matter to 0 while still setting the task quantities. What this will do is if you set a 0, instead of taking the task quantity or a quantity provided, we will automatically use the job quantity. So if I change this to job quantity to 3, and we take a look at the tasks of job 1 after this update has been through, keen-eyed people might have seen that there was a bit of a shortening here already. So we know all of these components have the quantity 0. So let's take a look. They still do. So the job quantity is still 3, and we see down below with a production time of 10 minutes, the entire cycle time of this, and we also see this here, is now 30 because 3 units are being produced. On the other hand, we had a task quantity given here of 6, and as before, the task quantity is still being used. The final minor thing that we added is an update to the filters up here. As you can see here, we now have filters for the resource name and the resource group name. So for example, if we go to the resource name, what we can select now is jobs where at least one task is being deployed on any one selected resource. So for example, if we select Emily, we have now shortened our list a bit because we only see only see jobs with tasks on Emily. This filtered selection is a multi-select, so you can say, okay, I need to see jobs on Emily and Dave, for example. For the job view, this is fairly minor because we still see the entire job. But if we now switch into the resource group view or the resource view, we will only see the resource groups and the resources selected. So for example, we have now selected Emily and Dave. As you can see, the only resources that we see are Emily and Dave, and the only resource groups we see are resource groups containing either of those. So this way you can really focus on your bottlenecks, or your focused department of scheduling. So for example, if we deselect this and change the filter to a resource group, and we know that, for example, the SAW operators are our biggest scheduling problem, we can completely focus in on the resource group of SAW operators and see only those to make changes here, as per usual. So with this, as I said, we added a major capability to really focus down on what you want to see in the resource and resource group views. Okay, but that's basically it for the minor enhancements. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the API. So first, before we go into the API, I would like to take a second to just discuss why we added one, and that is also being discussed by Martin in a blog post, which I highly recommend reading. When we started Just Planet, we wanted to build a software to help everyone in the job shop industry get a focus and get better scheduling. And through the years we did that, we find that we needed to connect to and open up a lot more than we have done in the past. And that connection might be that you have an ERP system that needs to be connected to Just Planet, so you don't have to have the hassle of moving over data, which is something we provided as an additional cost to you, but now give you the opportunity to, if you have the capability in-house, develop that yourselves. What we also heard is that some of you want to have data feeding back into your ERP system, which is something we tried to avoid in the past because of not that great experiences with getting data into ERP systems. But now, with the help of a couple of our customers, we are starting to make a foray into this area too. And with the API, we open up to you guys to make your own connections there. And in a couple of minutes, I will also show you a couple of examples what our API can do for you. But before that, let's see what we need to do to actually get to the API. So the first thing when you start Just Planet and want to use the API is you need to go to Settings and go into your user management. And in your user management, you will see down here there is an API key. As a developer, and this is still from testing, so this is all live, as you can see, you will most likely find this empty and can then click on Generate New API Key. And if you do that, page will quickly refresh and a new API key is being generated for you. This key is really important for everything you do with the API, and how and why that is, I'm going to show you in a second. But one thing, if you ever need to change your API key because you have because you think you might have been either compromised or someone knows this key that shouldn't, generating a new one disables all old keys. So once you generate a new one, you're fairly much safe in using it. So I just now copied that key because we're right now going into the API documentation that we now have, and I'm going to refresh that because I was already authorized in it. And when you go to api.just-plan-it.com, you will see this page, and this page has all information about what endpoints and what areas the API does cover, how you can interact with it, and you can even in this view try out the API. If you have developers working on open API systems, this is completely built on Open API, and there is a Swagger definition for the technical people on with you that you can reach under this link that will give you the complete URI definition. Now, the first thing we need to do, this API is header-based authorized. That means that in each request you make to the API, you need to include a header. In our case, that header is x-api-key, and the value is the key we just created. If you do this in this page, you can simply click on the authorize button, copy in the key, and now you can play around with it. So what can we actually do with this? As I said, we have this page set up so that you can see everything the API covers and all actions it covers, as well as all detailed information about what we expect you to send to us when you make requests to create new items, or what you will get from us if you query data out of the system. So for example, as we saw, I had a couple of jobs in it and a couple of job templates. So if we go to templates and see here, we have get requests and post requests. Post requests are for creating new objects in Just Plan It. So with this, you can, without using the Just Plan It interface or a Netronic built interface application, create your own application to create new objects. And with objects, I mean really everything basically in Just Plan It that you have. So resources, resource groups, job templates, components, or jobs and tasks. While with a get, you can query the data we have in Just Plan It. So for example, let's say, what templates do we have in this? We are already authorized, as I've done before, and you can see that with a closed log over here. And this handy yellow button, try it out, already beckons us to click it. But before we do that, let's quickly see what this page also provides. It provides you under the responses tab with the expected response you will get. And this is one time as a text, because what we will send through the API are JSON objects. And this is random sample data created by the overview. So you most likely will not see the GUID, and what that is I will talk about in a second, being the same for everything here. Neither will you probably not see your production time per unit being 0, because most of you will have production times greater than 0 on your tasks. If we switch to schema, you get a clickable and indexed and more fully information-giving schema of the object you're going to get out of this. So for example, the global unique ID, as I said, I will talk about a bit more, is the JPI internal ID. So what you give out as the job name or the template name, since this is user-generated and a text that is really not safe to use in an identification context, which is why internally we use those globally unique IDs. Those globally unique IDs have the benefit of being more than atoms in the universe. So the chance of doubling a GUID is basically null. It's not exactly null, but so minuscule that you don't need to worry about it. Plus, there are checks in place to prohibit this to happen. And this is important when using the API. You have to make sure you use the correct globally unique ID for your JustPlanet objects, which you can query, as I will show you in a second, from the API itself. And as you can see, basically on every option that you have, you will get an information what that value is for. Or like here, if you have a field that has basically two options, you will see all options allowed and coming out of it. But now let's click the try it out button. We see there are no parameters, so you will get, if you click this now, and I will do so that can start loading in the background, you will now have all templates written back to you. And we can take a look. You will get a curl command, which is basically a command prompt that you could put into a command line tool to also do this, and will reply with this response. And what you also see is what is the request URL. With APIs, everything works on endpoints, and for us, the endpoints are always defined at api.just-plan-it.com/v1/ the object that you want to query. So for example, in this case, we're querying the job templates. And as we can see here, we have a long text, which I'm going to copy real quick. Because while this is complete and fully viewable, it will be easier to do that in a text document. And as you can see here, so what I'm using here is Notepad++, which is basically just a text editor that has a nice little appendage for JSON files. So as I said, this is in JavaScript object notation. And we now can see we get all the templates with all information about those templates, including their globally unique ID, in this string. And I will copy this because I'm going to need that for something in a few seconds. So like this, you can get all data types in JustPlanet. But only getting data isn't the point. It's a big part of the point, but not the entire point. So let's say we want to add something new to JustPlanet, and let's take a job, for example. And that is why I copied the globally unique ID of that template, because I want to use the template in creating that job. You can see again under the post request, because post creates new objects while get just gets information. You can see what the backend expects and how that should be formatted. Of course, where you see the value string, you can put any text you want. So for example, let's switch back to Notepad++. I have prepared here the job information of a job I want to add to the JustPlanet. That job name should be API job, so that we can find it fairly easily. Its due date should be the 30th of November and should be released on the 1st of November. Its status should be quoted. It should be at the top of the system, because with the API, you also now get the option to insert new jobs wherever you want by directly setting the sequence number. It should be scheduled ASAP. It should be scheduled automatically, so no manual schedulation should be applied for here. We set a customer value, we set a quantity, and now we would need to set the template. And the template, again, since this is based directly on the backend, needs to have the IDs, which I now have copied and pasted in here, which I then copy out from here, say try it out, again, this body will be filled with the example from below, so it won't work directly. But if I copy in this, what we prepared now, and say execute, we get a server response again, and this is also very important. This response already has all the information about the new schedule point of this job. So we see immediately, okay, it took our scheduling information, but we also see the scheduling result. We know, okay, this starts at the 2nd of November at 7 a.m. and ends at 1:45, a day later. And if we now switch back to JISPlanet and into a view, you can also see here, sitting snugly at number 1, our API job. We don't see it here because we're currently in September, but clicking on it will move us over. And as you can see, it uses the template we selected. It's using the quantities we selected. Everything has been inserted without us ever touching the UI and just using the API. So I hope you can see that this is a fairly powerful tool if you have people you know or in-house that can help you with this without having us help you, which we are glad to do. But we wanted to enable you to do this by yourself and for yourself. The other things we can do with this, and for that I will show you a quick HTML page. This I've written in roughly half an hour with a bit of, and we see this is only 65 lines of code. And what this does is when I run this, and this is just this page, there's nothing else needed here. So as you can see, I have a box up here. I do need to change something because this is still on my testing purpose. So as you can see here, I make a query to our API to query the resources. So I do need to enter the API key here, which I do need to copy over. That I forgot. Sorry about this. So here where I say use A, we're going to use our API key. And what you can see now here, this page queried all the resources we have in our JISPlanet field. And since we started with Emily, let's do this here with Emily too. Selecting Emily now queries the API again and prepares a task list for it. So what you can see now here is every task that has been scheduled to Emily in our API, in our JISPlanet account, in a list form. I know this list doesn't look like much, but this is just an example for you what you can achieve with very little code and very little necessary steps to take, just so you can create your own job list creation. If you're not wanting to use the operator client, for example, or if you find the reporting module, the Excel reports that we provide too finicky to get the data you want, you can now build your own things with this API. The second thing regarding getting this data I want to show you is Power BI. Power BI is probably known by a couple of you, is a business intelligence solution provided by Microsoft. And this is just an example. Basically, every BI software that can consume web APIs will work. But since we are a Microsoft partner in our parent company Netronic, we do have the licenses for Power BI, and that's why I'm using this as an example. So this is a clean Power BI. There's no dashboard, no data configured. So if I go to Get Data and select Web and select Advanced, we can again simply put in the address here. slash, let's say jobs, because we want to have a report on how well our plan is doing. Again, we need to add the header that we saw. So x-api-key and paste our API key. Say OK. Now Power BI needs to build some stuff in the back end and started a query. And this might take a second. And there we go. So I'm just going to convert this into a table. Select the columns I want to use. So in our case, I want to have the name. I want to know if the due date is exceeded. I want to know the customer, and I want to know the template it's based on. And for the template, we don't really need the globally unique ID for the reporting purposes. We just need the name. Hooray, close and apply. And now I have, from the API, gotten a data source into Power BI from which I can quickly and easily build reports. For example, I can add a visual, and let's say we make a donut chart of jobs exceeded. And now I immediately know that exactly 50% of my plan is late. Not that great of a plan. Luckily, those are random data or testing data from our end and not one of your real plans. Then a second report I can also quickly do is, okay, let's see which templates are used how often. Or if we don't want to have it like this as a board chart, let's do it as a pie chart. And here I know immediately, and this harkens back to the last 2 webinars we hold. We are back in our chairs production. Most people that order from us want painted chairs. Hooray. And what we can also do is if we have recurring customers, for example. Let's do it like with, let's do it with this. If we have recurring customers and say, okay, how many orders do I have per customer? So we can now see here we have 1 for the API customer because that is the one we created. I have a customer named Martin who has 24 orders open. And as you can see, from just pulling the data into Power BI, I in minutes built a report that immediately tells me something about my plan. Which again shows you the power we now provide and open up to you that was slumbering in Just Planet, and that we now awaken with, or try to awaken with, your help and your inputs. And those are just a few examples of what we can do with this new API. And I'm 100% sure that you guys have a lot more ideas and points that you would want and can imagine to see this powerful tool to be used for. So I really encourage you to try working with it. Get in touch with us if you have questions about the API. If you share your ideas with us, we are welcoming all all inputs we get on this. What do we need to add? We are keenly aware that this is just the first step in the API. Because right now you can just create and get data, but we also have in mind to make you capable of deleting data, of making capable you to update data in Just Planet. That is on the roadmap, but we wanted to get this out fast to you guys so you can start building your own connections into Just Planet to use the powerful scheduling data we have in ways you want to. And with that, I thank you very kindly for your attention. Again, if there are questions, and you have them now, you can just let me know. If you don't have any questions now, just send them to us via mail, either to me directly or to support@justplanet.com. And yeah, thank you very much and have a great day.